I want to turn to next month's election. You've referred to the midterm election as a choice rather than a referendum.
That's right.
Given record inflation, why should voters choose Democrats?
Because it's not record inflation anymore. I'm bringing it down. Look what we inherited.
Despite those claims from President Biden that voters should vote blue because of his handling of inflation, a new USA Today Suffolk generic ballot poll shows that 49% of voters leaning Republican and only 45% leaning Democrat ahead of the midterms. In July, the same poll showed Democrats ahead 44% to 40%.
Joining us now to discuss is founder of Autonomy Strategies, Kristian Ramos, and host of A Fresh Perspective and contributor to Red State and Liberty Nation, Jeff Charles. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, so Charles, Jeff, let's start with you. So the new polling is showing that 21% of Black voters are potentially getting ready to vote Republican. Historic numbers, a historic shift. We're seeing that also among Hispanic voters. Is that related to inflation? Talk us through what's motivating these shifts.
I think there are likely a lot of contributing factors, Batya, but I do believe that inflation and the economy is the number one issue. All the polling seems to suggest that. And as people are still paying more money to go grocery shopping, paying more at the pump, this is going to continue to be an issue. But there are other issues as well. Crime, education, immigration. So all of these things are figuring into the equation, and people are getting the general sense that Democrats have failed to handle these issues while they've had control of the legislature and the White House.
Now, Kristian, I saw some writing on a whiteboard behind your head, so I want you to tell us all about what's going on there.
I love it. Let's start with the Latino vote, right? In 2020, our number was plus 21 for Democrats. If you look at four polls that have large sample size of Latinos that are in Spanish and in English, you have a plus 25 from Pew. From the New York Times, you have plus 24. From NBC Telemundo, plus 21. And the Washington Post, plus 27. So we are at or above where we were for the 2020 Latino vote. So we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty okay. And we're going to build on that. And how we're going to build on that? Listen, repeat after me, everybody. Republicans break the economy. Democrats fix it. We make it better. The wealth of lower income households grew faster than higher income ones did for the first time in modern history. Every income level are wealthier today. The net wealth of the bottom 20% of U.S. households jumped $1.23 trillion, translating into an average of roughly $43,000 per household after inflation. More than 10 million unemployed Americans found jobs. The fast rising employment rate produced a record 14.9% surge in overall wage and salary income. We have done an incredible job as stewards of this economy that was broken completely by Republicans and Donald Trump. And
well,
let's be clear.
It was broken by COVID. It was broken under Republican leadership because COVID hit, and we've put some things back together. So there are improvements. Is that you think you can fairly attribute that to a difference in policies among Republicans and Democrats?
Let me speak to that because this is a very important point you're raising. Under Donald Trump, Latino unemployment was 18.8%, and I want to explain why it was 18.8%. There was no vaccine. There was no help to Latino businesses. So people either had to choose, I go to work or I lose my job. And if I go to work, I might get COVID and die. Under Joe Biden, you got vaccines, you got investment in workers, and our community is thriving now, right? They are working again. They are creating small businesses at the fastest rate in history. Do they know that it was Democrats that provided all of those, services to them? No, I don't think they do. Democrats have to make that case. That's the case we've got to make over the next.
Oh, okay. All right. I got to push back on a few things you just said. I mean, first of all, Operation Warp Speed, we had the vaccines as fast as we did thanks to Donald Trump. The side that was closing down small businesses was 100% liberal authorities and Democrat-led places, whereas, small businesses were able to stay open in Republican-led areas. But Jeff, I want to let you jump in here. I don't want to monopolize. I'm sure that you want to push back against some of those things as well.
Well, yeah, you basically took the words out of my mouth. The vaccines were developed under Trump. Biden just took what he got and ran with it. And yes, they were the ones responsible for shutting down small businesses, large businesses, schools. That was that was mostly Democrats. And the numbers might look good when you're talking about people's incomes going up. Obviously, they're not going up enough because we're still crying about this record level inflation, gas prices, all of that other stuff. Black voters in particular have indicated in several polls that these inflation rates are devastating them financially. So the idea that this is just some wonderful economy that we're in right now, I don't think you can sell that to the average voter who is paying a lot more for the goods that they normally get.
Well, that same USA Today polling showed that 40% of Hispanic and 21% of black respondents nationally are backing the Republican candidate come Election Day. Jeff, actually, let's get your take on that. Do you think voters of color are going to abandon Democrats this cycle?
I think a lot of Black and Latino voters are either going to stay home or they're going to vote Democrat. Now, Democrats will still get most of those votes, but you take Stacey Abrams, for instance. She has 79% Black support, 75% among Black men. That sounds good, but until you consider the fact that she should be getting over 90% of the Black vote, because that's what Democratic candidates typically get. You've got Governor Ron DeSantis winning over Hispanics in Miami-Dade County. You've got people down here in Texas who are winning over Hispanic voters. And the same thing is happening with Black voters in Georgia and other states as well. So I think that we're starting to possibly see a sea change, but I think this is more a result of the Democratic Party losing voters more than Republican voters picking them up, although there are people making a lot of good efforts. If they keep it up, then Democrats are going to be in a lot of trouble because they're going to be losing more of their most valuable voting blocks.
Yeah. I want to speak to this a little bit because I think what he's saying is important. Let's look at the Senate map, right? If Democrats win in Arizona, if they win in Nevada, if they win in Colorado, if they win Georgia and Pennsylvania, we will keep the Senate, okay? If we keep the Senate, it will be because of Latinos in the Southwest, right? Mexican Americans in Colorado, Nevada, and Arizona. And if we win Georgia and Pennsylvania, it'll be because of Latino and Black voters. Okay? If we keep the Senate this cycle, that is historic. That has never happened to a first-time president in a midterm cycle, right? So I don't understand. Like, those races are all competitive in those states right now. It is literally going to come down to the smallest of margins. And I predict it will be Latinos in the Southwest and Black and Latino voters in Georgia and Pennsylvania who are putting us over the top.
Well, thank you both.
Kristian,
go ahead, Batya.
I was just going to say, Kristian, I have seen polls and interview after interview after interview of Hispanics saying, the Democratic Party has abandoned us. The Democratic Party stereotypes us. They think all we care about is immigration. What we care about is what everybody cares about, which is the economy and crime. Like, I just keep seeing a wealth of information that these are important issues to Hispanic voters and that they increasingly see the Republican Party as doing better on that front. Is there nothing that you could say the Democrats could be doing better for Hispanic voters on?
Well, it's interesting you bring up crime, because when you ask Latino voters about crime, you know what they actually say that they're upset about? It's gun safety. And you know why they're upset about gun safety? Because Republicans refuse to act on this stuff, because they allow anybody who wants to get a gun to have a gun. And then these people turn around and they shoot up schools trying to kill people of color. They show up and shoot up Walmarts, right? In El Paso, Texas, where I was born. Latinos do not feel safe when just anyone can run around and get a gun and shoot us up at schools. And on the economy, listen, 1 in 4 small businesses in this country are started by Latinos today. Okay? 4 out of 5 Latino small businesses during Trump's administration, they couldn't get help during COVID. They felt extreme distress because there was nothing going on at that time. If anyone opened the economy, it was Democrats. All of the business closing that you guys just talked about happened under Trump. All of those businesses closed during the Trump bungling of the COVID response. I will give you credit for the vaccines, but let's be clear. DeSantis, Abbott, and the other GOP governors all said, don't take the vaccine. don't get your kids vaccinated. How does that help businesses stay open if everyone is sick and not vaccinated? Explain that to me. Is that a good business model to not vaccinate your employees?
First off, Trump didn't shut down any businesses.
Jeff, I don't know if they said don't. Well, maybe they said don't vaccinate kids. I don't think they said don't take the vaccine in general. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Abbott, DeSantis did not say don't take the vaccine in general. Trump shut down no businesses because he doesn't have the power to do it. Everybody knows that this was Democrat-led. It was Democrats who shut down those businesses. And even hitting on the gun safety issue, the vast majority of gun crime doesn't involve somebody walking into a Walmart and committing a mass shooting. It involves gun crimes, drug crimes. You know what? Those people don't get their guns legally. They get them illegally. Like 70, 80% of those gun crimes are committed by people who obtain their weapons illegally. But instead of acknowledging that, Democrats want to make it harder for Black and brown Americans to legally possess firearms so that they can defend themselves. There was a study that came out of Massachusetts just recently showing that over the past 25 years, their gun homicide rate increased by 111%, despite the fact that they have draconian gun laws that make it harder for responsible people to obtain the means by which they can defend themselves and their families. So the idea that these mass shootings are somehow indicative of most gun crime, that's not the case. If you want gun safety, allow responsible people to be able to defend themselves.
Well, we got to leave it there. Thank you both so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
More Rising right after this.